Just talk about
So what was that first assignment that you ended up getting?
I was in my maybe second year of college, and John took so long to get back to me, and I said, "Gee, maybe they don't like my pages, you know." But he wanted 10 pages, and he said, "Do them as complete and finished as you can, complete as possible." He said, "I don't want to see anything undone." All right, for any of you guys maybe still aspiring artists or just kind of want to know what it took. So I mailed them in, and it was worrying me so bad in my break, so I ran out of the institution and ran into a payphone. Remember, there was no cell phones back then. And I got John Romita on the phone, and back in those days, you can get people on the phone. You know, the secretary would pick up and say, "Okay, let me see if John is in." And John, very animated, you know, he said, "Hey, kid, I've been meaning to talk with you. Sorry it took me, so long to get back to you." He said, "Why don't you come on up? I got some guys I want to introduce you to." And lo and behold, that was Marv Wolfman and Don McGregor. And they put me on 8-page mystery stories. And that gave me the ability to get into my work sequentially, to tell a story that readers can understand, at least the way I told a story, where if there were no words, they can understand what was going on. So that was my kind of forte and gimmick that I think I stole from Jack Kirby. You know, couldn't steal too much because the man was brilliant. You know, I can go on and on about Jack Kirby, but it's about me.
It's hard not to in a lot of ways. I got the story I always go back to is I got to do a panel with Jeff Darrow years ago, and from Kirby to Darrow, I wouldn't think there'd be that much connection, but they worked at Hanna-Barbera together, and Jeff told me he stole one of Kirby's pencils.
Yeah. Well, I've heard a lot of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you can imagine what they're worth today, my God.
Jeff always told me he put it in. It's in his art desk, and it's just like a little totem there, just kind of sitting there.
Right. And if you saw one of Jack Kirby pages, because Jack was an illustrator before he got into comics. A lot of people don't know that. All them guys were illustrators because you had to earn a living. You know, comic books was a baby industry, and they said you can't get a job in that. My mother said you can't get a job in that, and she threw away all my old comic books, you know, in the trash can. But now, you know, hey, I wish I had some of those books. I'd have probably had a lot more money in my pocket. So, you know, Jack Kirby drew twice the size up. We're at 11 by 17. His page was so complete, so tight. There was nothing to figure out. And I look at those pages like a woman will look at a newborn baby. And I'm trying to tell you, that's how I felt about Jack Kirby pages. So if he stole it, he had good reason to steal it.
What was the best piece of art advice you got as you were going up, you think?
Just get into your reference. And I met Jack Kirby, you know, and it was a good story with that because I was so afraid to approach him, and Jack Kirby had this white hair and olive skin, and it looked like the dawn. Everywhere you went, you had this trail of people following him. So Rubenstein, I met him in San Diego. I said, "Hey, can you bring me up to introduce me to Jack Kirby?" And he said, "Oh, sure." So Rubenstein just walked up there, and Jack was probably sitting where that fellow is right there, standing there. And Jack came right over. And the closer Jack Kirby got to me, my heart was pounding. You know, I can feel my heart beating. This is like Moses parting the Red Sea, you know. And he took both my hands and clasped it. And he said, "Just do it your way, son. Just do it your way." So I'll never forget that. So information comes in all different parts, from all different ways, through your peers, books, magazines, other artists, you know, and how much you work at your craft. Because no matter what I do, it's going to come out Ron Wilson style.
Yeah.
You know, and Herb Trimp told me once, he said, "I don't know why you're looking at that stuff. You're not going to draw like that." Especially when the Image Boys, you know, the new kids on the block came to town. But, you know, you can always pick up little things. So I always felt I was a comedian. Just try to take little things. Because you would see Big John Buscema walk through the halls, Gil Kane, very tall and linear, what's the word, linear, very lean, tall. And I think his characters looked like him, you know. He would come in, and we couldn't wait to get a hold of that portfolio, but we had to wait for the editor to finish, you know, critiquing the work, and then we would come in as little kids, me and Ed Hannigan I'm referring to, and say, "Can we see those pages that you got?" And we'd look at them and just browse through them. So it was like heaven, being at Marvel, and Marvel was very liberal, and it's a wonder they hired us and took us in, and they weren't afraid to teach us. And Marvel, not taking anything away from DC, but DC had suit and ties, and Marvel they came in jeans with holes in them, and they're very relaxed, editors very relaxed, and so I just fit right in.
I love hearing stuff about that, and when you're saying that, like when it comes out your style, nobody draws the Thing like you, like not completely, like you're sort of in between a couple different artists that I can point to, like, oh, that's kind of like it, but it's definitely you. You know what I mean?
Well, that's getting back to style. Like, no matter what I absorb, it's going to come out looking like me. But you do have inspiration, because I thank the Golden Age artists and the Silver Age artists for training me, inspiring me to help become who I am. So thanks to Joe Sennett and Jack Kirby. So it's a combination of them that I found my way to the Thing. Because, when you're a kid, sometimes you don't even know what you're doing. You're just trying to copy what you see, you think you see, and it comes out your way. But the fans took to it. I'm so glad and so blessed.
For a couple of you guys came in later. If you have any questions, just throw your hands up. I'll get to you. Marvel 2-in-1, what was that like, drawing a book where, you had one main steady character through it, but it was, you kind of got the sandbox of Marvel books in a lot of way. Was that kind of a dream gig in some ways? Yeah,
because the treasures fell into my lap, because everybody wanted to draw the Fantastic Four. That was the big mother book of Marvel. And I didn't have to want or try and compete for that book, because all the characters came to me. All the villains, all the co-characters came to me, and Marvel 201 attracted these team-ups that I love. So that way, in that respect, I love, my tenure on Marvel 2-in-1.
I love that book. It was one of those books that I discovered later in life too, because I'm a '90s kid for the most part when I started buying books. But then you start going back and you find certain characters you love, and the Thing's one of them for me. Another one, and this is a completely personal question: how did you end up on Captain Britain? Do you remember?
Well, I have to go forward to go back.
No problem.
Okay. So I was always at Marvel. Remember I said I was a nuisance? I was. I was always at Marvel, and you always had these the editors would come in and give me little tips, and I don't want to get off the beaten path here, but Roy Thomas saw me and said, because I was doing I did about 101 characters for Marvel, covers rather. Herb Trimp drew about 102, so he beat me out by one. Not that it was a contest, but so I was working under the tutelage of John Romita Sr.
Yeah,
and I was the go-to man for fill-in books, the go-to man to do covers, because none of the artists, like the big-name comic book artists, they didn't have time to do their own covers. So covers was a down step, and not many artists, they can draw the book beautifully sequentially, but they couldn't do the covers. So John Romita Sr. would call me in, and we'd thumb through the Xeroxes. He said, this would be a good scene for a cover. We do the thumbnails, blow them up to layouts, and then blow them up to the actual drawings. So Roy Thomas seen me up there. He always seen me up there. He said, you know what? Since you're always up here, I might as well put you to work. So he said, you want to draw a Power Man? I said, yeah. And in my mind, I was saying, hell yeah. But, I was just there, right time, right place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So going through your career, there's a webpage called Comic Book Database, and it lists is like your name and what you the title that you worked on. Is there anybody you didn't get the touch that you kind of like to? Because I was going through it, and I'm like, you've drawn every Marvel captain, America, Marvel, Britain, the whole list. There's a bunch listed on your database is a bunch of German reprints of books that I think they're the Fantastic Four and things like that. Is there a character you really wish you had gotten a good shot at that you haven't had a chance to do yet?
Well, one of them was Conan.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
But sometimes you're not tailor made for those characters.
Mm.
So they saw me as the thing man. But I'm loving it now because I mean, like one day I walked in and said, "Jim, I'm tired of drawing all those rocks," and I've drawn about 1 million rocks to this day. But I can't complain because they paid the bills, so no complaint here. And but Jim took me serious, and sometimes your mind wants to grow. You don't know why, evolve. And literally, they put me on a plane, sent me out to California with a bunch of other editors, and we got the He-Man job. And boy, was I sorry, because I had tons of reference. So the thing I can draw in my sleep, blindfolded. But He-Man, you had to have all these characters, these references. The toy company has notes and, it has to look like this. This is the story. So I paid for that, but it honed my skills, and that's how I got to draw the WCW.
I was going to ask, is it was an interesting thing to see pop up that I didn't know you had done. You did the entire run of Marvel's WCW book.
So all those specialty characters, these books, these toys first, books second, they would come to me and put me on it. So it kept me working. Biggest thing in comics is that you want to work. John Byrne Sr. said, as a freelance, you never know when your next job is coming in. I didn't care. I was young. I didn't know if it was coming or not. I just was around it. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Youth is ignorant and bliss at the same time. And, so I didn't have that worry. But I know what John Byrne Sr. is talking about now, though. You want that blanket of security. Mm-hmm.
Did I see a hand raised up? Yeah, go ahead.
Other creators versus, I guess, having a very open collaboration where things flow freely?
Yeah, that's a good question. Very interesting. But when I came in, I was just so happy to draw. You can put anything down in front of me, and I draw without question. So all my job was to try and convey what you put on words into pictures. Remember I said sequential storytelling, get the story right, and that was my job. So I didn't come in with that kind of vision. Now later on I developed it, but I saved all that for my characters, my story, and still you team up with writers who are very hard-headed, and you tell them to do this, and they don't even want, and they don't listen. So no, I didn't have any wars, anything like that, because a lot of guys were artists/writers, and some of it was political. I stayed out of all the political fights at Marvel, so I dodged a lot of blows. I mean, that's why I lasted about 15 years.
Did you have a favorite writer to collaborate with? Is there
Doug
one?
Mitch.
Yeah.
Tony Isabella, Power Man. Yeah, those are the two nicest guys I wanted to meet. Bill Mantlo, a whole lot of them. Len Wein, Marv Wolfman, who gave me my first job. Don McGregor and Marv Wolfman gave me my first mystery stories. And later on, they became editors. So it's not good to burn bridges when those guys can be your boss tomorrow. Got to know how to walk the road.
When you went to the WCW book, you're now drawing real people, like people who exist, although they are sort of cartoony at the same time. Yeah. Where's the artistic line there where it's, your art style, but also making sure that people know that, okay, that's Sting, that's Cactus Jack. Like, how do you know where to draw the line between the two?
Okay. Well, they call it a gift. And my wife coined the phrase the best. She said, they don't know how you do it. You don't even know how you do it. So, just give me the reference. And as long as I have my reference, I can keep my style. Remember I said that whatever I see is going to come out my way anyway. And you hope you please the powers that be, that you can get the likenesses, keep your style. And remember now, because the reason why I got into this industry is that, I was in love with wrestling. Bruno Sammartino, all those old guys like that. I always loved the muscles up here and everything, and the football necks.
Yeah.
So I love drawing people, like muscles. So I don't know how I did it. I just threw it out there and hoped they bought it. You know, sometimes you got to toss it up there. But it's not that kind of luck, but it's luck at the same time. You just got to, like, remember I said the He-Man kind of like sharpened my my tools to work from reference and convey it on the comic book pages. So I had a lot of practice with He-Man. That's why they threw the WCW in my lap. And that was an interesting book because I did hang out with Johnny B. Bad.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
He was my favorite wrestler at that time. And I got free tickets to the wrestling matches. And those guys were so huge. I knew, you know, I'm not saying they were on steroids, but you wouldn't want 6'7",
Yeah.
350, 60 pounds. You wouldn't want to meet them in a dark alley.
Especially when you see them back then. You see them all on TV, and you're like, oh, well, that's a smaller guy. And then you meet the smaller guy in person, and like, oh, yeah, he's a smaller giant among the other giants.
Exactly. So I had so much fun doing that book because I got to hang out. Went to wrestling matches where there were more fights in the stands, in the bleachers, than there were in the ring. and these are like young girls that was throwing down.
Mm.
So it was cool. It was cool.
Did any of the wrestlers want you to draw them differently?
No, they were amazed because I drew Johnny B. Bad a portrait, and he hung it up on his wall at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I colored it and everything, so I was pretty much into it. You know, when you had a father that raised you on Saturday Night Wrestling, you know, we had soda and snacks and stuff like that, and your favorite hero was Bruno Sammartino, and I look at his physique today, no steroids in that man. Now, I don't know now, but
Yeah.
I think that was natural.
Yeah, he looked great.
You ever got to look at him? Jesus Christ. Yep. So today, you don't know what's in these guys today. Okay. But that was the real deal back then. And people can call it scripted all you want, but I'm just throwing this out there. If you're into like professional sports and things I don't want to say and I shouldn't say, but I think sometimes winners are predetermined through betting, you know. And one professional sports athlete said, it's not what you do, it's what you don't do. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Now I want to slide by your table later on and just talk wrestling for 2 hours.
So everything is scripted these days, guys.
Yeah.
And that's why reality TV is like taking off, you know, so huge in this country. Because it's scripted, but you're able to talk about things in the middle that really comes out emotionally. Because sometimes there's always an elephant in the room, you know, even with your closest significant other. And not to look at you like that, but I guess you guys know what I'm talking about, that, you know, things you would say at the Thanksgiving table that you shouldn't say, that you say it anyway, and you've been holding the whole year. That's why some of the dinners go kind of sour.
Did I see a hand go up there? Yeah.
I was going to make a comment. Pro wrestling is about storytelling as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where it would fit well with comics.
Yeah, it's a marriage, you know what I mean? And they had a script, we have a script, you know. So sometimes the outcome is predetermined, but you have a lot of fun. You know, they're the first superheroes anyway, the way they like twirl up in it.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I'm a wrestling.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm preaching to the choir right now, so you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I know who Mark Miro is.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting if you know those guys too. I've gotten a chance over the years to interview a whole bunch of them. Most of them are comic book fans,
Yeah.
and it's sort of the other side of it. Of the reason they got into wrestling is because it's the closest they can be to a superhero in real life. right?
Exactly.
As I was doing my research, I came across, but I couldn't find much about it. How did you get involved with the Milestone and Milestone Media during the first round?
No, because I was still a Marvel man.
Yeah.
And Marvel was employing me that time. I didn't take risks or chances, and that was not my baby. So usually, I really had nothing to do with the politics around that.
Yeah.
Them breaking into the industry, DC being the mother umbrella to their whole outfit, because I mean they were the money people. DC. So I wasn't involved in none of that.
Oh, okay. It popped up on. It's one of those things you can only trust the internet so far. That's why I'm asking it in that way. Is like but nothing else pointed to that. You know what I
you
mean?
need Dennis Cowan here for that.
Yeah. So as an artist, what are your preferred work tools? What is it you like to use for drawing? Is it just certain types of pencils
Yeah.
and anything in particular?
Just the basic. It comes down to a 2H. But I learned how to get various shades of pencils. You know, you start off light, so if you make a line, mistake, and speaking of mistakes, you know, for inspiring artists, there's probably 10,000 bad drawings in you. You might want to get them out of the way as quick as you can. And you need a lot of pencil miles in this business. And as a boxer, like would spar, we spar, but they would say, hey, go to Central Park and draw people like sitting here in all different kind of states, relaxed states, feet crossed. You watch all of that stuff, you know. So that's how we you know, train. You know, just drawing people, family members that won't sit still. Subways. I was born in New York City. So you have to learn to draw without people knowing that you're drawing them. Like you're looking somewhere else, but you're really looking at them. You know, like that. And like I said, you need your pencil miles behind you. So, and lo and behold, that develops your skills. Mm-hmm.
Were you working like 9 to 5, or was it 9 to 12, 9 to 6 in the morning? Or
Well, I have a short story. John Byrne would work from, let's say, 9 to 5, and he wouldn't go back to the pages after 5. I can't do that. When I was in my studio, my work would be on the easel. So I would work during the morning, pick at it, go to lunch, come back, work in the afternoon, probably go back out, come back at night, work at night. Then I call it the late night show, where I'd work maybe from 1 to 3 in the morning. So I'm always working. It's around the clock. But some artists has a system. You know, that's how they do it. We're all wired different. And that's the way I was wired, and I still work like that. If I'm in McDonald's, I work at McDonald's because I love the smell of coffee. When I smell coffee, it's time to work. You know, time to get up. And the people don't bother me because they'll come over, look at it, and get, you know, compliment me and all that other good stuff.
Mm.
But when you come from a big family, you have to learn to draw and tune out because your little sisters, they want to be a nuisance and they're bothering you half the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got to learn to tune them out. So, no. When I sit at the desk out there, all those people, all that commotion, that's music to me. I don't see that. I don't even look up. I got to get this commission done. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I feel about it.
Has anybody recognized you while you were working?
On planes. And
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Because then you're sort of trapped with them for 2 hours.
No, they would sit there the whole time. And as I'm leaving, aren't you Ron Wilson? I said, yes. You still working on Battle Rapids or something old, but, you know, it's relatively new. You talk about social media.
Mm.
So, no, I have moved on because I switch around different projects, you know. Now, I'm working on Super Boxers, just to get a plug in there. That was printed in 1983 on the Marvel Comics. I'm doing Super Boxers Genesis before the first Super Boxers was printed.
Oh, okay.
And we're going into Kickstarter in November.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's called Super Boxers Genesis, and I'm going to reach back for all the old school artists, inkers, colorists, and there's no consistent inker on the book. So I'm going to give everybody cameo appearances and hope it all comes together and still looks consistent.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Inking's kind of a dying art these days because so many guys work digital and just do it themselves. But there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
Did I see?
I think it's Hamilton.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was reading comics going back to like the 70s and 80s. Never thought I'd see the day where like Power Man and Iron Fist actually made it to TV. Like it seemed like something that was pushed off to the side. But want to see how do you find like what's your impression now? Like how does it get put back onto the page now that they're actually on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Like do you find like you need to play with like what the image that's out there now for it? How do you find its influence what goes on the paper?
Well, it just depends because a lot of, how can I say it? A lot of people hire me for work, they want the old school look. They say that we don't want the characters on TV. We want the 60s, not the 60s, that's before my time, the 70s and 80s look, the 80s look. So that's when my phone would ring. I would do stuff in Image. They said, no, we want your style. You want that old school flavor, which is now dying, and dying off with the Bronze Age artists, which is me, Bronze Age. And during that period, I think we jump-started the industry. We catered to character-driven conflict stories, that catered to adults, and it wasn't really like vanilla or black and white morality. Characters got more edgy, Sin City, Hellboy, more darker. And I think the Bronze Age creators and artists, I think we jump-started that whole movement. And now, look what we got here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you at the back there?
I asked about type of scripts. What type of scripts do you like working on, and how has it changed during your time in the industry?
Well, there's two kind of scripts. One is a synopsis, and that's paragraphs. And you have a lot of freedom to break those paragraphs down into panels that equals a page, the way you see it, the way you want it done. But you got to put the story elements in there, because the writers will come back and say, hey, you didn't leave me room for my precious words, and you didn't follow the story. Okay. Now, if you're doing a script, which they say this action is in panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, then your hands are handcuffed and tied behind your back. I didn't get too many of those, but I got more synopsis. That's why I loved Doug Minch, Tony Isabella, and Bill Mantlo.
So sort of like the quote-unquote Marvel method,
Yes.
I guess, yeah?
Yes, and that gave us freedom, to play with the panels and to make the books more interesting. I think that's a Marvel trademark.
Mm.
This is why they Marvel Comics today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to
Very
argue it,
special. Right.
especially when you get guys like you, and before that, like Kirby. You don't
Oh,
want to
yeah.
tie his hands behind his back too much.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Was there another hand that I saw up? Thought I did. Okay,
one more.
I might just be getting
Take
old.
one more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
You have such a long day.
Hmm.
How much do you accomplish? Like how many panels or how many pages of artwork do you produce in that one day? Just typical day.
Oh, okay, I just give you an average, because I can really get convoluted here. If I lay out 3 pages a day, layouts, then I'm good. And so once the pages are broken down and I can see them, the work is pretty much done in my mind. When you can't see it, you're in trouble. It might be like writer's block. So you got to, get your images on the paper, and then you can work it up. And that's the key. 3 pages a day when I was in the industry. Now it's on my time. I can nitpick a page for a week. Just keep going back to it. I'm surprised when I do these panels, I don't bring any work. That's the downside, because I see this is more oratory and speaking.
Yeah.
But I like to show and tell.
Well, if we have you back, feel
Yeah.
free. I got an overhead here
Yeah.
every time, so I would.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that I can't draw worth crap. I have a hard time with stick figures, so whenever I see that would be the only problem.
Yeah.
Is I'd just be mesmerized by you drawing for
It's a thought. It's an idea.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a real sort of generic question, but I always like asking it of artists. What's your favorite character to draw? Is there is there a
Well-
guy that you never get tired of putting down on the page?
And it better be the thing.
Yeah.
It's the thing. Yep. Yeah, bread and butter.
And how did you work with the rocks? I like it because he's made up of rocks and basically lines all over the place. I've had a couple artists that say they would prefer to draw Spider-Man's web lines any day over that. But did you
Yeah.
have a system for it, or was it just sort of free flow where it worked and
Okay. Yeah, I think I said it. It's what I thought I was seeing.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I tried to mimic that. And I go back to Jack Kirby, Joe Sennett, and I looked at how they formulated the rocks. And I noticed light, dark, I get technical, shadows, and where your primary source of light is, even on your faces, on mine. Sometimes it's overhead, sometimes it's underneath. And you add your shadows according to where you think your light is, which you're in control as an artist and as an art director on your own pages. So, I like to tell you, sometimes I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
to be human.
Mm.
But sometimes things come out regardless, you know. But overall, there is a system, there is a gimmick to it, there are tricks of the trade. And as I talk more with Joe Sinnott, who would ink me, and I love Joe Sinnott, I keep bringing up his name because he made you look good. And he had that polished look to the Fantastic Four. So if you were in the Fantastic Four, you had that Fantastic Four branding to it when Joe Sinnott inked you. So I just look at inkers too, and I said, this is how he patterns his rock patterns. And then you got to keep, you know, art is done through repetition, over and over and over, till you get drunk, over and over. But that's part of being in love with being an artist. You know what I'm saying? We take that on, bring it. I'll do it over and over again. That's what I'm doing out there in that table, over and over and over. But you got to love it, and you got to have your passion. And I can't say those two words. That's it. You know, and your skill will come. The people will come around, and you know they would admire you. That help boost you too. You need the fans, compliments, praises, and my teachers, counselors. You know. When I tried to get into, take it further to the high school, I went to the High School of Art and Design, a vocational school in New York City. They said, why don't you go and take the test and see if you can get in? Because I did not want to go to my average or normal high school around my way. You know, I wanted to go to a high school where there were artists that can draw like me. You know, and when I got there, they were like light years better than me. And it was High School of Art and Design. You know, and they're the reason why I'm sitting here to this day, you know. So I can go back, you know, I can bore you with my stories, but there was a nice little tailwind, you know, to help push me, you know, even through my grade school, high school, college years, to help get me to this point here where I'm now talking to you guys, you know. So it just took a lot of work. But if I knew how many pencil miles I was doing, I probably said, no way. No way, Jose.
Looking forward to the future. You mentioned that you're going to be doing a Kickstarter campaign. Is that kind of one of the nice trade-offs about how the modern society works? Because now you can directly get a book funded. You don't have to go through somebody else. Like from someone coming from the old school system like you are, now you're jumping in both feet into a new. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on it.
Well, there's a lot more people that know more about Kickstarting than I do, so I'm like a layman. But I'm glad to have them in my corner and have them around me. But you know, the way I still see is that I'm going to put a lot of my money into the book too. So I'm not going to depend on Kickstarter. This is how much I want this done. Especially when you give your favorite inkers a call that they haven't been working in a while, or just, you know, just around, you know, hey, come on, I got a job for you. And so I'm going to put out a lot of money from my own pockets to pay these guys. And if I get it back to Kickstarter, fine. But I want to make sure they get paid first. I'm the last to get paid. So money is not my goal here. I didn't start out making money. It was a hobby. And I started out for love, right? Love don't pay no bills. But luckily I have sources where I can like now pay to help get my dreams started.
That's pretty good, though.
I still thank God for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
They can get us over the hill. Not to downplay them that one bit.
Did you think about shopping it around first, or was the idea was no, we're going to do it ourselves? Like, I'm sure there's probably a couple publishers that would have.
Well, the man who's supposed to have been here, Mr. Arvell Jones, and wait till I get my hands on him. But he's like my manager, you know, and he would call and connect with these publishers. So as one publisher was talking, you know, the Kickstarter, he said we should do it like this. And I think he's going to give me my creative freedom on the job. And I think that's important now. Whenever I do something now, at the age I am now, I want creative freedom.
Yeah.
So that's, to answer your question, that's how I chose a publisher of my choice.
No, good reason.
But there's a lot of them. But a lot of them want you to get paid at the end or the back end.
Yeah.
But you may never see a dime, you know.
Yeah.
But like I said before, I'd rather come with my own money to help pour into the pot to get this job done.
Is there any inkers you can share with us that you know are going to be working on it, or are we going to keep that a complete surprise till?
Well, the reason why you don't see any artwork from me now is because everything's so shrouded in secrecy. Because you ever wonder why when Star Wars is coming out, nobody leaks anything?
Yeah, or at least they try their hardest to make sure nothing gets out.
Because they can't circumvent the contract or you'll be sued. So they make you sign something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be the man that leaks everything before it's time.
No,
You guys will find out
no worries.
in due time when those images come, and we're going to hire like great illustrators, and so we'll show you guys a peek somewhere around late fall, early winter.
Perfect. I'll be making sure to look for it. So we've got about 5-6 minutes left. Does anybody have any more questions that you want to throw out? I've been monopolizing the time here. Yes, sir.
What do you think the difference between the old school and current art is in comics?
Okay, well, I was there. I seen the transformation. And the new school was more digital. Let's go to these guys first. The coloring took a leap, where that became pretty much more involved by computers. They even said that computers were going to, take our places, which I couldn't see, and I didn't want to believe it. But I would say that in my book it's going to be computer assisted, as far as digital. So a lot of stuff I want to contract out to guys who can do Photoshop, who can work Maya, and who are computer experts to give me that coloring, that 3D look. So as you were saying, a lot of guys don't even ink now, just darken the pencils. But I never was that exact penciler. It's like rough, where you work it out. And I have a lot of lines, a lot of smudging. Then you got to work so hard to clean that stuff up. Some guys lay down an exact line, and the paper's still clean. I have oil from my skin, and it's heavy-handed. So I still like the use of paper. Some artists draw on the computer. Now, I'm not that person. I like to touch and feel the paper. And I told you before, when I saw a blank sheet of paper, my eyes would dilate because I had to mess it up, And I like to feel, it's like when you driving a car, you might like a flying car, but I like when that rubber hits the road. I like being in control. I don't like automated stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I like being a little bit of control here. So I don't know if I answered your question, but the future is vast and beautiful, but I'm old school and a combination of new school. So some of my stuff will be computer assisted and enhanced in the graphic novel. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Time for one more, and then we got to get going. Yes, sir.
What do you see as the difference between Marvel and DC? What you said you're a Marvel guy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see?
Well, in the beginning, those guys were dressed in suits and ties, and you really couldn't hardly get in there, in DC. And I said in Marvel, they were more dressed like hippies. So they gave you a break. They didn't care about your color, age, race, gender. I didn't feel any of that. If you had talent, they would pull you in, say, hey, kid, come on in here. You know what I'm saying?
Was that Stanley wrote that, or is it?
If it came from Stanley, he was the head. But it trickled down to all of his men, Stanley's men, artists, art directors, editors, writers. And those are the guys who I work with, And Stanley was like the sun when we all, rotated around the man. You know what I'm saying? So, but DC, how can I say it? My best friend loved DC Comics. And you had Flash versus Superman, nice, cute stories. Remember I said vanilla type stories, good guy, bad guy. And I just was never attracted. They had stories on Lois Lane, very cute, But Marvel, he said something very interesting, would have their heroes fight each other. And that's what I wanted to see. Who would win between this guy and that guy? Your dream matchups that boxing hardly does today, because everybody wants to run and hide behind their belt. You know what I'm saying? And you get it like McGregor, Mayweather, and get those dream matchups. Everybody comes out to see that. Wow, So it captures your imagination, and it makes you wonder who would win. You know, that's what I liked about Marvel when Submariner versus the Hulk. I saw that on the comic book stand. I told my mother, I gotta have that book. It's only 25 cents too. And I begged her and pleaded for it. I wanted to know who would win. You know what I'm saying? So the writers always find out a little way to give Hulk the edge, which he was stronger and gets stronger as he fights. You know what I'm saying? But in the element of the Submariner, you know, underwater, that's where he's probably the best and the strongest.
Who wins in Hulk versus the Thing?
Hulk,
Hulk?
by far.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to wrap things up. If you would give Mr. Wilson a round of applause.